As automotive enthusiasts, we all remember iconic sports cars such as the E46 M3, often considered to be one of the best in the past few decades. Now, why am I talking about a BMW in a Hyundai video? Well, Albert Biermann was the head of the M division when that car was produced at BMW. And he eventually left BMW and went where else? Hyundai. And even though he does seem to be very good at making cars, I get the distinct impression that he's not the best at branding. Welcome everyone to the meeting where we're going to figure out what Hyundai's performance division is going to be called. Albert, you're new here. Why don't you go first? H-I-J-K-L-M-N. I think it should be called the N division. Welcome to an episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive where we're going to be diving into this 2022 Elantra N. We're going to look outside, inside. I'm going to try and cram a bike in the back of this thing to show how usable it is. And then most importantly, we're going to take it for a drive on some canyon roads. Starting with the exterior as we always do, it's a bit of a divisive car. People either love or hate the way this thing looks. There is admittedly a lot going on with the front end. There are a lot of shapes, there are a lot of triangles, there are a lot of hexagons, and of course you do have this lipstick on the front and the sides. And then in the back we have taillights which run across the entire length of the vehicle and a wing for good measure. You're seeing it here in a color called Cyber Gray, which is basically a non-metallic gray. The car comes with 19-inch wheels, which of course are pretty big, and they're wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, which are on the sticky side. Behind those wheels are 14.2-inch discs to help you haul this car down to a stop. And under the hood, you have a 2-liter turbocharged engine making 276 horsepower and 289 pound-feet of torque. Behind that engine, in this car at least, sits a 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. There is an optional 6-speed manual, but we had the dual-clutch today, and I haven't driven the dual-clutch yet. I've driven the manual in the Elantra N, so I'm quite keen to see what this dual-clutch is like. One of the things that I've found quite odd with this car is the fact that they put in this rear cross brace, which goes across where the trunk opening would be from the trunk to the back seats. And I do understand why they did it, for rigidity, to make the car handle a little bit better. But in a sports sedan, one of the things that you need to be able to do is have it be a sedan, have it be usable. So I'm very curious to see whether or not we're going to be able to fit this bike back here. Hey, if you enjoy these kind of reviews, or if you just like watching me try and jam a bike in the back of every car, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. As for the bike test, I was pretty surprised with the results. Despite having that weird brace in the back, I could still fit a massive 29er mountain bike without too much issue, and it only took me around a minute and a half to do it for the first time. Well, I'll be damned. You can fit a bike in the back. Hopping inside the Elantra N, there is a lot to talk about, but I'm immediately greeted by some amazing seats. These seats are super cool. Not only do they look good with this lit up N logo, but they have blue stitching and a contrasting leather and Alcantara type material with this little design touch of these 3 stripes in the middle, which you see in other areas of the car as well. They feel to me upmarket for this car. Really, for $32,000, you're getting a heck of a lot. You're getting heated seats, you're getting a full digital display for the infotainment, as well as the gauge cluster, which is totally customizable. You also get things such as lane centering and blind spot monitoring. Although one thing that is interestingly absent from these features is adaptive cruise control. I would have liked to have seen that included because most cars do have that these days. But from a usability standpoint, this cabin makes a ton of sense. The infotainment is really easy to use, and it's not lacking in physical buttons. You still have buttons for your radio, your navigation, your seek, your track, your volume knob, which is, I think, most important, and then the HVAC controls as well. A physical button for the heated seats, so you don't have to go digging in a menu. These are things that seem super obvious, but are absent in a lot of new cars, and it's refreshing to see that Hyundai is still having an attention to detail for making this usable. The last thing I'll say before we take this thing for a spin is I do like the design of the steering wheel. It has a nice feel to it, as well as having a lot of buttons on it, but most importantly, these two N buttons. So you have N1 and N2, which you can customize in the MMI to decide how you would like this car to react. Would you like the suspension stiffer or firmer? Would you like the throttle response more aggressive or a little bit lazier? How loud would you like the exhaust? There's a lot of things you can customize, and it's nice to see that Hyundai is giving you the ability to do that. Time for us to go for a drive and have some fun. I'm gonna put this into N mode, my custom N mode. There's two different modes. But what I like to start out with when I do any new car review, especially the driving portion, is to talk about what I notice first when driving that vehicle. Like, what stands out to me the most? What is sort of the character or the most impressive thing about the car? And there are a lot of things with this car that frankly I'm shocked about. I'll start with a couple. I think the value is immediately apparent when you drive this car, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but this transmission is probably the thing that I noticed first. It is an incredible dual clutch transmission. I can't believe that we're in a day and age where Hyundai is making just a fantastic automatic dual clutch transmission. It's lightning quick. Upshifts, downshifts. I'm blown away. It's an 8-speed. It has 8 gears. So it's nice to have 8 gears for your upper gears for cruising and fuel economy and stuff like that. But you know, you get to go through them a little bit, and it shifts. It has this nice hard shift to it. I don't want to say artificial, but they've obviously built that into the transmission where it like gives it this kick of a shift. Now you can adjust that in the settings, as I alluded to before. With the N mode, you can adjust the suspension, you can adjust the shift feel, you can adjust the throttle response, you can adjust the exhaust noise. And I will say that is one really nice part about these N products. I experienced that in the Veloster N as well. I like how you can kind of pick and choose without ruining the car. Sometimes if you give people the ability to adjust something, they will adjust it wrong. I forget who said that, but somebody famously said that. But in this car, you know, they let you adjust it kind of more towards your liking, and you can't really ruin it per se. But man, this transmission, it's just incredible. I'm blown away. Now, the other thing that of course is going to be important about a performance car is the engine, and this is a good one. 2-liter, 176 horsepower, but you know, the more important number, or the number that I feel more, is the 189 pound-feet of torque. This engine is incredible. Like this car is properly fast. I just got out of the Civic Si not too long ago, and I really enjoyed that car. It's a great car, but man, this is so much faster. That was a 1.5 liter turbocharged engine. This is a 2 liter turbocharged engine, and it just makes so much more torque and horsepower, of course. I'm gonna drop down a gear here. I don't really need to, but with this transmission, it's just so fun to do. And it's just a wave of torque. It doesn't really end either. You know, sometimes these like super torquey 2 liter engines, they kind of fall on their face at upper RPM. Not this engine. What a fantastic combination. I mean, that is the basis to any good sports car, right? The heart and soul, the engine and transmission. But how about the suspension and the rest of the car? Well, it's incredibly neutral to drive, and it actually does remind me a lot of that Veloster N that I drove a few years ago, which I was really pleased with. This car, you can huck it in, and it doesn't feel like a traditional front-wheel drive car, because you can kind of play with it a little bit. You can turn in and then kind of keep turning in. It doesn't wash out. It doesn't understeer like a lot of front-wheel drive cars do. This chassis is very dialed. It feels very rigid. They have that crazy brace in the back seat area, and I'm sure that does a lot. I would be curious to see what this is like without that. We get into a slightly twistier section here, so we really get to experience what the suspension is all about. But it just hooks. And you could see me make little corrections with the steering wheel, and they all translate to the front end. And that's another thing that's a bit surprising. This car has a bit of steering feel to it, which is just so hard to find in this day and age. Of course, it's electronically power assisted, but I am getting some feedback through the wheel, which is something I could not say for the Civic Si. That wheel was pretty numb. But this is an honest-to-God weapon on a road like this. Suspension hooked up. They are adaptive dampers, so you can go softer or harder. I prefer them really just in their soft setting all the time. I find it to be just a great compromise. It's still pretty darn firm even in the softest setting. The full stiff setting I find to just be too much. Unless you're on like glass smooth pavement, it is quite jarring. So my move is, at least my preferred N mode is soft suspension, the lightest steering, because there is a sportier steering, but it really just makes the weight feel more. You don't get more steering feel through the wheel. So those two in soft, and everything else in aggro. Everything else in aggressive throttle, aggressive exhaust sound. And that's also something that they did. There's now a different setting for loud exhaust, and then a different setting for the burbly exhaust. So burbly exhaust, I will demonstrate here. When you let off, it will just do the pops and bangs in the back, which is, fun and immature and adolescent, but fun. But I like the fact that you can make that not do it, but still have the loud exhaust. I tend to keep it in the quiet exhaust mode for the most part because it does drone a little bit. Like you wouldn't want to drive on the highway in the loud exhaust mode because you just hear it go brrr. But the car is actually pretty loud, and I find it fun to put it in the loud exhaust mode on these back roads here. I'm blown away by this car. I genuinely am. I guess it's just because I wasn't really sure what to expect. But this is clearly made by somebody, by a group of people that values driving, like in the purest sense. It's well balanced, it's sorted, it's fast. I mean, what else do you want in a sports sedan? The brakes, nice firm pedal, haven't faded on me at all in the canyons. These seats, they hold you in so well, very well bolstered. I mean, these look like something out of, I don't know, man. They kind of almost look like Porsche seats to me. It's an incredible package. Now, when we get back to the value, it's an interesting proposition because this car is positioned in a very niche place, I would say. You obviously have the Civic Si, which is less expensive than this, about $2,000 to $3,000, give or take, depending on options. But then you have, it's also, this car is a little more expensive than the GTI. So you have the GTI, you have the Civic Type R, which is obviously more expensive. You have the Golf R, and it's sort of positioned in between those cars. And I'm sure Hyundai did that purposely, right? Like they're trying to find a niche somewhere in between. If the Civic Si is not quite what you need, but the Civic Type R is too much, man, this slots fantastically in. And once again, I'm just blown away at the value because for $32,000, this is a very nice driving experience. And I will say as well, something you can't get in the Si is an automatic transmission. This, of course, has the dual clutch automatic, and it's a really good one if you want an automatic, if you're going to do a lot of daily driving. But they also offer a manual transmission, so you have both options. Now, I haven't driven that manual transmission one, but I suspect it's identical to the one that's in the Veloster N, being that these cars have the same engines and the same transmissions otherwise. Yeah, this is a fantastic car. I would absolutely recommend this to anyone looking in this segment. I would rock this car for sure. I would rock this car if I was looking for something, you know, reasonably priced, that will have reasonable fuel economy, but be able to be fun to be driven. If I have to say my nitpicks or the downsides, I'm genuinely having trouble finding some. I do think that the looks are not for everybody, me included. I think it's a little busy, or there's too many shapes going on, especially the front end. I think most of the car is pretty attractive. Side profile is really cool. The back is pretty cool. Could do without the wing. But the front is a little busy, so that might be the only thing that would, I hate to say it, keep me out of the car, but that's totally up to you. Like, you either like the looks or you don't. And what I will say is that I have had quite a few people, surprisingly, in the time that I've had this car, come up to me and ask what the car was, were interested, and they were just like, wow, that looks unique. I've never seen anything like that. And it does definitely stand out on the road, and I really like this cyber gray color. One other small nitpick that I do have is the visibility is a little strange in the front of the car. It has this very hunkered down feel to it. Obviously, it makes the car look sleek, but the front windshield is quite angled and really quite small in the grand scheme of things from a height perspective. And you have a massive rear view mirror along with this black piece surrounding it, which probably has something to do with collision avoidance or something like that, some sort of camera up there, but it takes up a lot of room. And in the canyons like this, when you're trying to look around to the next corner, you kind of have to hunker down because you can't really look through it. You have to look below it. Minor nitpick, and maybe that's partially me being a little bit taller. My head is higher to the ceiling. If you were lower, it would be less of an issue, but it is something to bring up. So, wow, Hyundai, bravo, N division, not M division, N division, bravo. Hyundai wants, obviously, to be taken seriously, and this is not just a badge engineering. With some manufacturers, we see them just throw an AMG badge on something and call it an AMG, even though it's not fully fledged. This car is a proper performance car, and like I said, it was clearly built by people who enjoy driving. So, bravo to them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm really curious what you guys think of the looks. It seems to be quite divisive, but like I said, if you get past the looks, it is a fantastic car, and I love this dual clutch. It's 2022, and we have Hyundais with incredible dual clutch transmissions. It's the world we live in. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on the next one. Peace. I'll do less talking so I can concentrate. But look, an Elantra can keep up with a GT4.